Thank you for visiting my channel. Today I am repackaging a video posted almost a year ago on my Monastic Musings channel. I removed it because I did not consider it to be on brand with that channel's mission. Recent postings on X by Archbishop Corleone have prompted me to rebroadcast most of this nearly one-year-old video. As many of you are aware, NFL player Harrison Butker has come under fire for his commencement address at Benedictine College in Kansas. Most of the ire has been directed at the part of his speech where he told the women graduates that their degrees were worthless and that their true place in the world was to be wives and mothers under the domination of their husbands. He said some rather nasty things about President Joe Biden's faith and tore into bishops and priests whom he claimed to be too lax in promoting his extremist brand of Catholicism. He devoted a significant amount of attention to his devotion to the pre-Vatican II liturgy, erroneously labeled the TLM. He claimed that he attends this old form because he believes that this is how God prefers to be worshipped. This, of course, is in direct contradiction to Pope Francis, who reinstated restrictions on the use and promotion of this form. It deeply saddened me that this took place at a Benedictine institution of higher learning. I was a member of the same Benedictine congregation, the American Cassinese Benedictine congregation, to which this abbey currently belongs. Back when I was a monk of the Woodside Priory St. Anselm Abbey community, it was I who was labeled conservative for my preference for following established Vatican II liturgical norms. At the time, monasteries in my own congregation had the reputation of being somewhat liberal and even lax in monastic observance. It appears that this abbey and college have taken a different road. To learn that this extremist right-wing propaganda was broadcast, then enthusiastically cheered by the crowd, disappointed me greatly. But what made it even worse was that my Archbishop boosted the speech on X, praising Butker 7's speech as a call to faithfulness. This video was produced following Father's Day of last year after a similar, thinly veiled rebuke to untraditional fathers was posted by the Archbishop of San Francisco on X. I admit that some of it sounds rather mean, but I have little regard for a schismatic prelate who will not cooperate with the authentic gospel mission set by our Holy Father Pope Francis. Thank you for taking the time to view this video. In my effort to complete and post this video as quickly as possible, production value may be a bit compromised. What I have to say is timely and urgent. Yesterday evening, I quote-tweeted a screenshot of a tweet posted by Archbishop Corleone. He had published a piece on fatherhood in the National Catholic Register. I did not read the article, but the Archbishop's self-quote was enough to convince me that he was taking advantage of Father's Day to deliver another finger-wagging screed in the culture wars. His tweet reads, "But when a marriage culture breaks down, even more heroism is required of fathers to protect and provide for their children. In a society riven by family fragmentation, all of us men need to step up and become fathers to the fatherless." His reference to the breakdown of the marriage culture is a clear reference to the diversity in family structures that now exist, and which include same-sex couples as much as any other outside-the-norm type of family. This prompted my quote tweet in which I attempted to say, I suppose if I had a handsome, muscular bodyguard at my beck and call and were able to create for him a nothing job in the San Francisco Chancery while denying full-time employment to a veteran employee, I guess I also would feel entitled to regurgitate culture war crap on my platform. I am compelled to clarify my messed up tweet with an explanation because events from my 10 years ago when I took early retirement from the Archdiocese have directly resulted in my current impoverished situation. These events, juxtaposed with the Archbishop's unrelentless attacks on the LGBTQ community and his ongoing propagandizing of imagined anti-Catholic persecution fomented by groups associated with the Liberal Democratic Party, reveal a sickening irony about which I refuse to be silent. For those of you unfamiliar with my story, let me recap. In 2013, I was a hermit according to Canon 603, in vows under the Archbishop of San Francisco. A famous person who was also a Canon 603 hermit was Sister Wendy Beckett, known for her videos on the world of art. I was given that special permission by Archbishop George Niederauer back in 2011. It was my intent to establish a Benedictine monastery more in line with the original spirit of the Rule of St. Benedict, as called by Vatican II for monastic and religious institutes of the consecrated life. Archbishop Niederauer, anticipating his retirement, was hesitant to allow me to make the vows perpetual, leaving it up to his successor who, much to my grave disappointment, turned out to be a close associate of Raymond Cardinal Burke, namely Salvatore Cordileone in 2012. Burke had been a co-consecrator at Cordileone's episcopal ordination and was at the time a powerful member of the Committee for Bishops in the Vatican. This all took place before the election of Pope Francis in March of 2013, which spelled the banishment of Cardinal Burke from the Curia, and any hope of moving Cordileone from San Francisco to the Vatican Signatura, where Burke formerly presided, was no longer a possibility. It appears we are stuck with Salvatore until his mandatory retirement in another 8 years. Archbishop Cordileone was not too keen on me from the start. When we first met together to discuss the future of my vocation in the Archdiocese, he fidgeted uncomfortably in his chair like a self-conscious child in the principal's office. As for any hopes I had of establishing my community, he told me that he feared it would be in competition with his Contemplatives of St. Joseph, a decidedly anti-Vatican II group holed up in a convent in South San Francisco. My financial problems had already begun to mount up. I was not a full-time employee at the Chancery, only 4 days per week. I made proposals to bring me on full-time, but these were turned down due to lack of money, even though the worship office's budget for reception expenses far exceeded the amount to cover a 5th day for me in the office. Also, the bill to cover the priest's evening banquet following the annual Chrism Mass was double that amount. The real kicker was the creation of a new full-time position of safety coordinator for the Archbishop's bodyguard over the summer of 2013. Having been employed in county government for over a decade, followed by another decade in the Archdiocese, I was well aware that safety coordinator was often a designation tacked on to an existing position in an organization, requiring minimal training and expertise. In my experience, such designations were created in compliance with some kind of human resources requirement or regulation to satisfy some professional standard or best practice, and not a full-time job with any kind of workload to justify a full-time salary with benefits. By the time Cordileone had placed his posterior onto the cathedra of St. Mary's Cathedral in San Francisco, it was well known that he had been a primary player in the passage of California's Proposition 8, which limited marriage to one man and one woman, banning same-sex marriage in California. Being made the leader of the local Catholic Church in a city often associated with LGBTQ pride and diversity did not go down well. His advocacy against adoption and marriage by same-sex couples and his attempts to impose fidelity clauses in teacher contracts regarding hot-button Catholic teachings, including homosexuality, continues to sound alarms in my head when I consider the Archbishop's bodyguard. Derek Gaskin is a very handsome, muscular man who could easily be a Vogue model. A bishop hiring a man like this is not unlike the married middle-aged straight male boss hiring the prettiest secretary in the pool even though she can barely spell her name. No impropriety needs to occur to signal how bad the optics are for an outspoken bishop on gay rights to be constantly followed around by a young version of Idris Elba. That alone is bad enough, but to create a full-time nothing job at the Chancery for this reject from Abercrombie & Fitch, while denying any such opportunity for a veteran employee, particularly when his need is so great, just stinks of corruption and hypocrisy. I have been asked why I don't just move to another diocese. The truth is that I have tried very hard to do so, and I have found it impossible. Furthermore, it is more personally beneficial for me to stay here where I grew up than try to start fresh somewhere else. Besides the great sense of feeling at home here in San Mateo County, there are huge benefits which the county offers that are not so readily available elsewhere. The county has been highly proactive in dealing with many people in my situation. My landing in this rather secure housing facility after suffering the darkest days of my life in a shelter is due to the county's liberal efforts in getting ahead of the housing shortage in this area. Leaving here would be suicidal. As I said in my previous video, my calling seems to be survival. Survival of decades of change rubbing up against revisionist history, which would have people believe that somehow 60 to 70 years ago was an ideal time in U.S. history that was ruined by the rise of woke liberal ideas and rampant sexual deviance. My experience and observations prove otherwise, and I have spoken of these at great length in other videos. Shame on Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone for promoting another anti-Vatican II and anti-Pope Francis celebrity. You will be called to give an account for your failure to lead your flock in truth. Thank you for watching. Please assist me in pushing back against these MAGA Catholic forces by contributing to my GoFundMe page. The link is provided below.